Hello, everyone, and welcome to the concession stand here on the KB Radio Network. I am your host, Kevin Reed, and this is the review of episode 3 to HBO Max new horror prequel, It. Welcome to Derry. Welcome to the show, everybody. Episode 3, entitled Now You See It, is probably the most important episode so far in this early season to Welcome to Derry. It really nailed home where we're going with this series and what the story they are prepared to tell. The first 2 episodes were more of an introduction to this world and integrating the uh losers from the era that we know of, whether it's the miniseries or the 2 movies that came out recently, and kind of linking those worlds together, but introducing these characters that have uh, significant parts in those continued stories that we know. This show, as you know, serves as the prequel, of course, of all of those uh, shows and movies, as well as the novel written by the great Stephen King. Let me just say, this is my favorite episode so far. And I know it's only 3 episodes in, but I just loved how we got more now. Now the show can breathe and get loose a little bit, as per the first 2 episodes where we were just being introduced to Derry in the 1950s or 30s, whenever this is set. But introduced to these characters, reintroducing it and Pennywise and the lore and everything, how it's supposed to function in this period of time. And so this episode, now we got a show. Now we're starting to feel the presence of Pennywise. Now, we did get the presence of his many forms in the first 2 episodes, of course, but now we're starting to feel the actual presence of Pennywise in this episode, even though we did not get Pennywise. We're still waiting. We're still waiting for that reveal. At this point, it's like, why are you hiding it? We know that Bill Skarsgård is in the show. We know that he will be playing Pennywise. I mean, why are we tiptoeing around that? But I do love the build up, and I love that it's not just about him being the clown. It is precisely that. It can take the form of anything. And that's the allure of this property, what Stephen King created. This episode begins with a flashback to 1908. We see this young boy go to a carnival. He goes into this exhibit or whatever, and we see all of these deformed humans and whatnot. And he's freaked out. He's scared. He's a little scaredy cat. And for the first time in, I can't remember, and I'm going to say this may be a trigger, and I don't mean any offense to anybody, but it was on the show. I'm just repeating what was on the show. And it blew my mind because I haven't heard this word in so long. This used to be one of those words that were just thrown out around the time of me growing up around in the 80s and whatnot. I haven't heard it in a long time. Now, it's probably still being quoted by a lot of idiots out there in the world, but I was just blown away. Like, wow, I haven't heard that. It's something simple. When the boy comes out of this exhibit thing and he runs into his father, and his father looks up and see what he was running from, and he looked at his son and said, "Don't be such a sissy." And I'm like, man, I haven't heard sissy in so long. It just blew my mind to hear that. He could have said the N word and I probably would have just whatever, continue eating. But it was the word sissy. It just took me out. I was like, wow. I don't look. It was just me. I know y'all or looking around like this dude's an idiot. It's just one of those things. I wasn't expecting it, but it just blew my mind. But to continue on with the show, to continue on with the show, the young boy and his father, they're traveling home, and the car having some car trouble, goes to this stand, this water where they selling water, the Native Americans, the indigenous people there in Derry, and the water's a nickel. He doesn't have a nickel, and he trades off his slingshot, as a thing, to get the water from the young indigenous girl there. And we get a flashback when they were playing. I don't know if it's a flashback or forward, whatever it is, but they're playing around in this clearing, and he goes into the forest, and in the forest he meets one of these little people that he saw in at that carnival, the skeleton man. And he goes into the forest, the indigenous girl trying to tell him don't go into the forest, and he ends up encountering this thing to the point where the indigenous girl, who we later learn is Rose, saves him from it, and they get into the clearing, and she tells him that it, it stays in the forest. So we later find out that little boy is Francis Shaw, who is played by James Robar in the present time. So it's a connection there, and it touches in on the lore, as we learn later on, that when people leave Derry, they forget they forget all about Derry. You forget the people you met, you forget everything about it, your childhood experiences or whatever the case may be. You forget it once you leave, and that was expounded upon in the miniseries as well as chapter 2 of it. And so I like that. I like the fact that we're connecting different time periods throughout this show. The writing here is great. You're never lost in the sauce. You don't feel like they're taking liberties with the with the it lore. So I like that. That story is very interesting to see it develop, to see how the indigenous people are going to affect this story. We know that they play a big part in the novel as well as the films. So what part are they going to play in this era? We don't know, but it's going to be very interesting to see this story unfold, because they're trying to protect the world basically from this entity known as it. And they know what's in that forest, and they know that the government in the military are there trying to dig up this thing, and what can they do about it? You know what I'm saying? So it's going to be fun to see that go like that. It's funny. While I was watching the show, I thought about Sinners, and I thought about the Capache tribe in the beginning, who was trying to warn the racists about the vampire, and all I could think about is, well, in that scene with the indigenous people on the show, it's like, why don't we listen to them? No matter what it is, they know what's going on. This their country, and so they know what's going on here. And so why don't we listen to them? They're trying to help us, and we never listen to them, and it always bites us in the butt, just like it did in Sinners, and just like it's going to be on this show. And so that's going to be fun to get into. We got another subplot here with what's his name, Dick Hallorann and Leroy. We starting to get a relationship there, for better or for worse. When Leroy is ordered to take Hallorann to search for where this entity is, because when we left off last episode, they found the car that was from the early 1900s, and it was nothing there. There's no evidence of it. So they know that whatever they're looking for is beyond that car. It's deeper in Derry. So uh, Leroy is commissioned to take Hallorann on the helicopter to search as he holds the slingshot that was in a cigar box. He's touching the slingshot to get a reading or a shine, if you will, of where this thing could be. And this is the same slingshot from earlier with Shaw and Rose when they were kids. And that was once again, nice connection there. At the time, we still didn't know how did he get this slingshot and what's the significance of it. And then in a later scene, we find out that Shaw is the little boy from the cold open of this episode. So it all starts to tie itself up. And so there was a good scene there on the helicopter where Hallorann is in this trance and he ends up going to wherever it is, where the little pit that it is in, where people float, where they float down here. And he encounters it, but we only see the silhouette of his eyes or the glowing of his eyes. We don't see him. And he asks Dick, like, what are you doing here? Or who are you? I forgot the exact verbiage that he used, but he sensed him. He's like, why are you here? You know what I'm saying? And I was like, oh man, that spooked me out more than anything else on this episode. Because later on when Dick is talking to Shaw, he's telling him like, well, Shaw had asked him, like, did you find it? And he's like, well, actually, it's more like he found me, or did you see it? And he's like, no, more, he saw us. And I'm like, man, that's frightening when you really sit down and think about it. You're supposed to be hunting it, but it is actually hunting you. Yeah, that is frightening beyond fright. And so you have that, but while he was in this trance, he was about to open up the cargo door on that helicopter and walk off, but Leroy saved him at the last second. And so he goes to have dinner with Leroy and his wife, and they're talking over the dinner table and whatnot. And out of the blue, Dick asks Leroy, like, where's your son? And you see Leroy give this look like, why are you asking that? But he answers it in kind of a questionable way, I guess you could say. And he's like, oh, he's by a friend's house or whatever. So when they're on the porch talking, drinking a beer, he was like, I never told you I had a son. And so Leroy puts two and two together that is more to Hallorann than meets the eye. He actually does have a shine because he's heard of people with the shine. He just never met one in person. And then he starts to break down how he knew, he felt him in his head. And this isn't the first time. He also felt him that night when he got jumped in his barracks. And he told him, you was there. You was in my head then. And Hallorann tells him like, he tells him to stay out of his head. And Hallorann tells him like, oh, you ain't got to worry about that. Normally when I look in people's minds, when they're about to die, they think about their family, their friends, their loved ones. You weren't. You weren't. You was analyzing the situation. You was breaking things down while it was happening. You're like, man, I don't want to mess with you. You are not the one. That's somebody you don't want to deal with. So, but he does tell him on the other hand, like, man, you saved my life on the helicopter. And so, I'm in so many words, I'm paraphrasing, like I'm indebted to you. And so you have that story going on. How is this relationship going to build between these two? And then you have the kiddos. Lilly, Ronnie, Hank, well, not Hank, but Will and Rich. And Lilly and Ronnie devise a plan. We'll take a picture of these things, these entities. I'm jumping ahead because I wanted to touch in on Lilly at the end of the last episode was taken to Jupiter here, which is the asylum, and she's out. But I want to mention that because Madeline Stowe was in in there. It just brought joy to my heart to see Madeline Stowe. I don't know why, because I haven't seen her in much of anything lately. And I always had a thing for her because she's a beautiful woman, and she still is. She looks the same. The woman didn't age. I don't know. I don't know if they used any effects or something, but she looks the same. She looks gorgeous. Not a wrinkle on her face. I mean, maybe it's my TV. I don't know, but she looks the same. She is gorgeous. Anywho, yeah, that's the reason I wanted to bring that up. But going on to the kids, they devised this plan. So they go and well, they have a camera, but they need the film developed. Yes, back in the day, they had to develop film. I remember going on a ramble here. I remember going and dropping off film at that 1 hour photos. You remember those places? Those of us of a certain age, the good old days. Now, hey, it's on your phone. But anyways, Ronnie remembers that Will is somewhat of a genius. He's smart with chemicals and whatnot. Maybe he can develop it. So they track them down, Will and Rich, and devise a plan to help him. And they tell him about why they're doing it. And of course they don't believe him. And they're off to the races. Rich tells them all about, well, basically lied about this ritual, going to the graveyard and conjuring up these spirits or whatever. Didn't work at first, but it ended up working. It ended up working in the end. The cemetery in a nice scene, with the bikes riding through the graveyard, and it's an earthquake and the ground is crumbling around them and everything. Beautifully shot. I love that scene, to see these kids in terror riding, trying to get away on bicycles. That is peak cinema there for me. I was all in on that. I was worried, after the first episode, with the just decimation of all of those kids who I thought were going to be our main protagonists throughout this series. I was like, well, we're not going to get a losers in this show. And now we got a new group of losers with these four, and it's four characters that I am all in on. I really love these kids, man. These kids are doing excellent, in my humble opinion. I still feel like it's one missing. I think it's going to be the girl, the one with the glasses. The girl that was Lily's friend, but want to be with the cool kids, with the mean girls. I think she probably would end up joining the group, but it just feels like it's off base. Just with four, I feel it should be a fifth one there. We'll see as the show go on. But anyways, as we as they try to escape these spirits, we see the spirits of the kids from the first episode, who got slaughtered. We see their ghosts. They're taking pictures, and I thought this was well choreographed and constructed. How they passed off the camera. One would take a picture and they'll lose it, and the other one have to pick it up, and they'll take a picture and they lose it, and it was just done well. It wasn't cheesy or dumb the way it was done. I really was intrigued by that. I was on the edge of my seat watching this chase, trying to get these pictures and also try to get away at the same time. And so Will was the last man standing, if you will, with the camera. He sees this or hears this figure in the back in the crypt. He goes to take a picture, and he hurry up and flash a picture. We get a dramatic moment where we can't find him. Where is he? And he finally comes out of the graveyard. So they go to sneak into the school, develop the pictures. And it works. And it works. They got a picture of a couple of their friends who were murdered that day, and we get to the picture that Will took. And all you see are glowing eyes and a silhouette of what looks like a clown. And I man, I had chills with that picture displaying the silhouette of Pennywise. That just tells me that we are just that much closer to his epic unveiling on this show, and I cannot wait. I cannot wait. Oh my God, this is going to be so good. But I enjoyed this episode. Really good. We got the world building in the first two episodes. Now we're getting the character development now in the story development as well. We're it's a clearer picture where we're heading. Everything worked. Everything is working. Hopefully they can keep this momentum throughout. So far, they are 3 for 3 in my book. But that's my opinion. I would love to know yours. What did you think of episode 3 of It? Welcome to Derry. Are you enjoying the show? Are you even watching the show? I would love to know. Email the show, kbradiopodcast@gmail.com. You can also search for the show on all social media platforms. Just search for the KB Radio Network. Don't forget about YouTube. Subscribe to the KB Radio Network channel and like this video if you don't mind. Don't forget about the 5 stars, the reviews, and sharing this show if you're listening on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, iHeartRadio, wherever you are currently listening to the concession stand here on the KB Radio Network. Everybody, thank you for joining me for this review of It. Welcome to Derry, episode 3. Want you all to know that I love you, continue to love everyone, and until we speak again, you all be blessed.